Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Poultry Health Today, and with me is Dr. Dieter Vancraeynest. He is a poultry veterinarian for Zoetis, and he is based in Belgium. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Let's talk about infectious bronchitis, particularly in the layer industry, because I understand that they're holding on to layers much longer now, where it used to be maybe 350 days. Some operations could be going as long as 500 days. How does that affect your strategy for vaccinating for infectious bronchitis?
When protecting layers against infectious bronchitis, it all starts in the rearing phase, when you rear your replacement pullets, and actually there you have to lay your foundation. And the foundation will consist of live vaccines, first of all, and live vaccines of different serotypes. So actually you have the Massachusetts serotype, which is generally considered as the basis for any IB protection program. That is something that invariably any replacement pullet will get. But you'll have to top this up with variant vaccines, variant live vaccines. And so you choose variant serotypes that are relevant for the geographical area in which you're operating. Now, variants are a tricky thing because it's essentially there's new variants emerging every now and then with IB. IB is a moving target. It's continuously changing. So you cannot vaccinate them with variants or with any new variant that is popping up, because we simply don't have homologous vaccines for all new variants. So you try to expand your protection by combining live vaccines of different serotypes, which then leads to a broad cross protection if you do it wisely. That is the foundation.
And so in other words, if you're using two vaccines, it might be like 1 + 1 = 3 because you're getting some cross protection with some of these other serotypes.
Exactly.
So you just have to find the optimum combination for your region and for your flock. And now how long you're going to be holding on to these birds also enters the picture.
You start with diagnostics if possible. You check which serotypes are circulating in your area, and you base your vaccine scheme on that. And for us as an animal health company, we know that we cannot develop a variant vaccine for all the variants emerging, but what we do a lot is cross-protection trials. We do challenge trials and check which combinations are protecting against what. That is the basis. On top of that, every layer will get an inactivated vaccine later in life. So after it has been primed with live vaccines, it gets an inactivated vaccine for boosting. Now, the recent thing with the longer lifespan of layers, the recent complication with the inactivated vaccines is that the duration of immunity might not be long enough to protect them up to the very end of the laying cycle. The duration of immunity of most inactivated vaccines on the market has been established 10, 20 years ago when the vaccines were developed, and they were okay for the layers from that time. Layers are now living longer, and we tend to see that you need to top up the protection against IB during the production cycle. So in a perfect world, a layer doesn't need IB vaccination anymore once it starts producing. However, now with the longer lifespan, you see a need for boosting them with live vaccines during production. One of the complications there is that you often are faced with label constraints.
With the vaccines themselves.
Exactly. A lot of vaccines do not have label claims for use during lay. Some even might have contraindications saying this vaccine should not be used during lay. A lot of that is simply because the trials were not run. You need safety trials, you need efficacy trials, and often, well, in the past, because there was no real need to go and repeat vaccinations during lay, animal health companies were not necessarily investing in this type of trials. Now, this is also changing.
So there's no safety risk or anything, it was just a matter of
having,
as you say, not having the data to get that claim.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, yeah. So, for instance, to take a specific example, we have a product called Poulvac IBQX over in Europe, which is protecting against the QX variant, which is now one of the most relevant variants in large parts of the world. And there we did the safety work So now the contraindication to not use this product during lay has been removed, and you can start spray vaccinating chickens in production with the vaccine. There's no safety concern, which is a great help to extend this.
And is that fairly unique to this vaccine, or are more vaccines getting a similar claim or contraindication?
It's unique as to what our portfolio concerns, but we are working on other vaccines as well to enable their use during lay. Yeah. To allow for the producer to pick and choose what is working best for them.
Well, that's really good to hear, but let's talk a little bit, though, about infectious bronchitis itself. You mentioned that it's a moving target. Changes from year to year and sometimes from region to region. How does a producer go about planning his infectious bronchitis program? What can he learn from this past winter, for example, going into next winter?
Well, again, the basis, I think, lies in proper diagnosis of your problem. What serotype is causing, or what variant is causing your issue? And then you start designing, whether you're talking about broiler chickens or long-lived birds, you start designing your vaccination program based on that. So for instance, if you say, to name a very relevant one, I have a QX problem, well, there is a homologous vaccine available, so a QX vaccine should be part of your vaccination scheme. However, there's still variants out there for which you do not have homologous vaccines, or variants circulating in regions where a vaccine is not commercially available because it's not registered. A good example there is the variant 2, for instance, which is a big issue in Middle East, in Turkey, and now is spreading into Europe as well. And there's no variant 2 vaccine registered in Europe. So there you have to use this expanded cross-protection that is offered by other vaccines. Another example is Q1, a new variant in Europe, where we, for instance, have found out that a combination of Poulvac IB primer, which is in itself already a combination of a Massachusetts and a variant strain. If you combine Poulvac IB primer with Poulvac IB QX, you achieve protection levels against Q1 that are essentially high enough to potentially ask for a label claim.
Again, because infectious bronchitis can be a moving target, if you get it right the first time with your vaccination program, that's fantastic. But a lot of times, even with diagnostics, you're never quite sure. And so sometimes secondary infections can be almost as bad as infectious bronchitis itself. Is that right?
True. So IB is a perfect trigger, as many other viruses, for secondary bacterial infections. One of the most important ones being colibacillosis. You see a lot of colibacillosis as a result of IB or other respiratory infections. So that's another thing to take care of. Other things play a role as well: management, proper ventilation, making sure that the environment is not too dusty, that the ammonia levels are under control. But if you want to target colibacillosis in a preventive way, there's also a live commercially available vaccine for that today, which enjoys nice success, especially in the long-living birds in the US and other parts of the world.
And do you give that on day one, or what's the normal vaccination protocol for that?
I would say there's as many vaccination protocols as there are producers. There's a lot of variability. Some people would use it day one. Some people would wait for, let's say, about 7 days until they know that the chick quality is okay, so that they're sure that they will not need antibiotic interventions in the first week, because that is a thing to take care of. If you use this commercially available live colibacillosis vaccine, you cannot have concurrent antibiotic treatment. So sometimes it's better to wait to make sure that the chicks are all right, and then to vaccinate with this vaccine.